So we'll start today pretty normal. We're going to start with a half butterfly. So right leg is straight, left foot to the inside of the thigh. And then we come forward and down. Feel free to support your forearms or your forehead with a block or your left knee. You want to feel a stretch in the back of your right thigh and also your low back. So if adding support removes the stretch, then that's too much support. Okay? So you can use as much support as you want, as long as you still feel it here and a little bit back here. We'll be here for 5 minutes. Okay, so we're going to switch sides. Same thing here. This is half butterfly. Okay, so we're going to come up and we'll make our way back onto our back. We're just going to relax for a few moments. And then we'll bring our legs in, give them a squeeze, and shake it off with a little bit of gentle movement. This is the leg cradle. Okay, and then we use the hinge to come up to seated. So hands under the hips, palms down. The legs go straight up. Unless there's pain in your back, then you're going to bend those knees. Head and neck lift, deep breath. Exhale, lower the legs just before they touch. Pause. Inhale, legs up, and exhale up to seated. Okay, next we have lateral dragonfly. This is perhaps where the trouble part of the sequence starts. This is a double trouble sequence. So I hope it's not any trouble. I really do. It's, again, wasn't my intention on making this difficult on anybody. I was just trying to work the hips and the spine simultaneously. Okay, so what we'll do is fold over the left foot. It's my left foot. Fold over, and we just reach down and hold the foot to hold ourselves in place. So even though I'm holding my foot, I'm not pulling down. That's a very important distinction. If you look at my elbows, they're relaxed. I'm not doing this, okay? So holding ourselves in place, we want to feel stretch in here and here. Okay, so if you feel it, stay where you are. And if you don't, then you can roll or stack your right shoulder over the left. Now, I'll just mention some people, no matter what they try and do, they're just going to feel a hamstring stretch. And that's just because they have so much tension in their hamstrings. And this potentially stretches that muscle group. So if that's you, don't worry about it. It means you have a lot of tension there, and this is a stretching it out, and that's a good thing. Okay, that's not a bad thing. You can experiment with trying to bend the knee. That might alleviate that some because the hamstrings are across the knee joint. So bending the knee may allow you to access more of that groin and less of the hamstring. You can experiment with that and try that out. But for some people, just no matter how much they try and play around with things, they're just going to feel a hamstring stretch here. And that just means that's where the most tension is. And so one way of thinking of it is the pose is going to give you the stretch where you need it most. It's one way of thinking of it, okay? So if that's you, if you can't help but get a hamstring stretch, then just let it be a hamstring stretch today, okay? Okay, so we're switching sides. This is half dragonfly. Again, this can be a very challenging posture for many. So if you are struggling, if you're having a difficult time, please know that you're definitely not alone. This is a difficult one for me. But again, the difficulty should be rewarded by the therapeutic benefits of the posture. So we're getting a lot in this 5 minutes. We're doing a lot for our body in the 5 minutes that we're here. All right, let's take a rebound. So we're going to unwind and just relax for a few moments. Okay, we bring our legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it out a bit. And then we hinge up to seated. Okay, let's do a few more counter stretches / warm-ups. And then we'll get into our next set. So this is the bear pose, marauding bear. Move around, stretch out. And then the down dog. Remember, in yin yoga, down dog is not meant to be held stationary. So we're just moving and stretching. And then we'll come into a very unusual pose. I only teach this in, I think, 2 sequences. Unusual, powerful, very therapeutic again. So, please don't equate unusual with bad or difficult with bad. Do the best you can, okay? So this next one, we bring the left knee toward the left wrist. You'll notice the foot, it's alongside my left hip, or it could be under my hip. Just kind of depends on this bone, these bones here, what feels comfortable. I want to be clear, this leg, if we could just pop it off and put it away, we would. Okay, but we can't do that. So this is essentially, we want this neutral. We don't want anything happening here. This isn't about this knee or this foot, okay? Now I'm going to turn just for demonstration purposes. I haven't started the clock yet, okay? Still explaining things here. I want you to feel it here and here, okay? Now for me, I need blocks to help me feel it in my back. This is a back bend. It's an asymmetrical back bend, okay? It's also a quad and hip flexor stretch, all right? So this is what it looks like for me. I might even put the blocks up higher, just sort of depends on how I'm feeling at the moment. Okay, so this is the half seal pose. Seal is where we're doing a back bend, both our legs are behind us and our arms are straight. Well, this is the half seal. I'm targeting, again, right in here. These are the hip flexors. They extend down to the knee and then they cross the hip joint, move. They line the pelvic bowl and then run up to your lowest set of ribs. So right about there, they have a very intimate relationship with the back. So this is a stretch that, again, I only teach this in a couple of classes, a couple of sequences. This is one of them. But this is one that very often when I do teach it, somebody comes to me at the end of class or sometimes the next class that they take with me and they say, I have chronic back pain. And that half seal pose was the first time I felt relief or I felt free of pain in a long time. So again, this, if it's approached in the right way, can be very therapeutic. Now, many of you are young enough that you may not have ever experienced back pain or hip pain, and you may think it's not relevant. But it really is. If you're a modern American, then unless you have a very unusual lifestyle, or unless you're like a farmer or you do construction work or something like that. And even then, I think it's almost unavoidable to avoid just sitting and sitting and sitting and sitting too much, whether it's in our car or at our dinner table or wherever it is. We're sitting all the time, and that does a number on this muscle group especially. So feel free to play around a little bit. I like to sort of rock my hips and see if I can find a sweet spot, a place where I really feel that stretch. Again, it's right in there. You might even feel it kind of extend into your abdomen. And that's very much what we're going for. I'm trying to bring my right leg behind me and then bring my pelvis up as much as possible. The other area is the spine. This is called spinal extension, which also we tend to not get enough of from all of the sitting that we do in our chairs. So it's pretty much unavoidable in a modern lifestyle, just too much sitting. So very often the best we can do is try and counteract that. So again, if you're younger, you haven't experienced back pain yet, then great. Let's try and avoid it. So this isn't just, I don't want you to think of this as only for people that are sick or injured or have joint problems. It's not how I'm trying to frame this. This is a preventative. That's really what health care is about. You're taking care of your health. I have a good friend who's a surgeon and another one who's a chiropractor, and they both say we don't have health care in this country. We have crisis intervention or crisis care. So in other words, if the only time you think about your back is when your back is thrown out, then you haven't been taking care of your back, right? You waited until it broke and then you tried to fix it. That's different than taking care of it. I think many of us take better care of our cars than we do of our body. We just sort of expect the body to just run. We don't think about it. But we know our car we need to change the oil, we need to have the tires rotated, all of this stuff, right? Because a car comes with a schedule. A body doesn't. But a body really should. And I think for any body, yoga is a great way to help maintain the health of your body. It's something that you can do in a relatively short amount of time. You don't need a lot of equipment or gear, and it has a high impact in terms of your overall health. Not just your physical health, but the studies show mental and emotional wellness as well. So it goes beyond just fixing your back or your hip or something like that. Let's switch sides. Okay, so this is half seal again. I usually talk through this one because I know it can be pretty intense. And from years of doing this, I know that very often it's helpful to have a distraction, to have something to pay attention to rather than the intense sensations in your hip. So I usually try and educate a little bit about why this is so beneficial. So your left leg on this side is being drawn behind you. Again, that's called extension or hyperextension of the femur bone, the hip joint. Okay, so you're drawing that leg behind you. That's stretching your hip flexors. When you're seated, your leg is in this orientation. Your femur is in this orientation. This is called flexion. I'm sorry. Yeah, flexion. This is hyperextension, and this is flexion. So there's nothing wrong with flexion per se. It's a natural movement. But the problem is we spend too much time in that position. In a chair, your leg is in flexion, your femur bone is, and then your tibia is in a little bit of flexion as well. And so your leg just stays in that position for a long period of time, and that does a number on your joints and your muscles. And what's kind of insidious about it is that we don't tend to feel it. And I think that's why we like chairs so much, is because of the position of the legs. It makes it easy to sit for a long period of time. And that's actually a bad thing. I know we have to do it for work. But you want to get up. You want to move. So a standing desk is not a bad idea. It's a great way to break up your day, to break up the position that you're in. So maybe you sit for a while. I know many of us are working at home now. So another possibility is a laptop. And there's the Sphinx or seal position where you're on your belly. You could position the laptop in front of you, and then you could do your work. You can type on your keyboard on your belly, propped up on your elbows with the laptop in front of you. That's another position that gets you out of that same position that you're always in. So the kind of moral of the story, if you will, is variety is important for your body. There's no position that you can put yourself in that is going to be good for your body for, hours and hours and hours on end. The closest thing, the least stressful thing you might say, is laying in the bed. But even laying in the bed, if you're healthy, when you sleep, you move. Your body's just designed to do that. Your muscles don't get blood flow unless there's movement. So a healthy person will move in their sleep every so often. They will shift position, they'll roll over. If you don't do that, sick people who are bedridden, they get bed sores. Their body actually gets sores and lesions and things in their body from just laying in the same position for so long. Human body isn't designed to do that. So just keep that in mind, that break that you take and get up for a minute from your desk, even that, just for a minute, a bathroom break, something like that, is good for you. Now, I understand that because I do a lot of desk work as well, you get into a flow sometimes, and you don't want to interrupt that. And so it's a balancing act. If you're writing something, you're really in the flow, getting up, doing other things can break that flow, and that can be problematic. So you just want to keep aware of these things. Yes, sometimes it might be worth the hit in terms of your physical health to stay seated, to stay where you are, to push through. You're hot, you're on it, you're inspired. You just go for it, you keep going. But there'll be other times where you're maybe struggling, and you might find that actually getting up, taking a break, going outside, looking at the trees, that this actually helps you refocus and be more inspired and get more work done in the long term. All right, let's go ahead and come on out of that. And we'll rest for a moment. Just relax. Take it easy. All right, we'll bring the legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it out. And we finish with TTR, or twisted roots. So bring the legs in, cross the left knee over the right. You can lock ankles if you like. That's an option. You can have your legs like that if you prefer. We're just going to drop those knees to the left, which might feel awkward. What we're trying to do here is generate a stretch here, as well as a what's called spinal rotation. So the right hip, the more it draws over the left, the more the spinal twist. And then the more that my left thigh pulls my right thigh down, the more stretch I feel here. So again, this is a very personal thing. You'll need to experiment with your body's position to find the optimal position. There are other stretches as well. I feel a stretch in the front of my pectoralis here, the front of the chest, the front of the shoulder. You may be able to find stretches into your neck. There's one there for me. And so again, I can't tell you where you're going to feel the stretches. I can just guide you that this should be able to generate stretches into the hips, the chest, the shoulders, and maybe even the neck. So experiment, find the stretches. And when you do, you can just stay there. All right, let's switch sides. So pay attention to left and right, because again, if you don't, you'll likely just go into what's easy and comfortable, which is not necessarily what we're doing here. We're being very intentional. So right knee over left, and then down to the right. And the reason it may not be very comfortable comparatively is your knees may be in the air. Mine are. Okay, so it doesn't feel as relaxing. We don't feel as supported. However, what we generate is a deeper, potentially a deeper stretch. Okay, so it tends to be a more intense stretch for the chest and the outside of the hip and those areas. Now, intensity, like many things, can be good or bad. It really, again, it just depends on what we're prepared for, how healthy we are, what our body can manage or take. So again, I really encourage you to not think of those terms in terms of inherently good or bad, right? So is intense good or bad? Neither, right? Deeper, for instance. Oh, that's a deeper stretch. A lot of people assume, okay, yoga, deeper stretch is better. No, please don't do that. Don't assume that a deeper stretch is going to be better for you. It may be worse. Any kind of term like that, try and let go of the adding any kind of, sense of this is good or bad. And just think of it in terms of your experience and what's happening with your body and what's appropriate for you. So if I say this is a deeper stretch, just take that for what it is. It's not a better stretch, it's just deeper. If I say this pose is a very intense twist, then that's what it is. It's intense. It's not necessarily better or worse because of that. Same with the sequence, like I said today. Today's sequence is intense. It doesn't mean it's inherently better or worse than any other sequence. It's just, for most people, an intense sequence. Again, they're very often, there usually is costs and benefits with anything that you do. So if we double up hips and spine like we've done today, there are two things I've identified as the kind of side effects of that, if you will. So one is the postures tend to be more intense. And the other part of that is, they're less comfortable. And, we often also don't go quite as deep. So this is definitely not my deepest glute stretch in this posture. So that's another kind of side effect of it. The interesting thing is, like the lateral dragonfly, or the half dragonfly we did earlier, that's actually a very deep groin stretch for me. So that might even be my deepest groin stretch in some regards. Same with the obliques. It tends to create a really intense, deep stretch in the obliques, deeper than I would get, say, in a banana pose, which is kind of the alternate pose to stretch that region. So this is just, again, kind of the way that it goes. In certain postures, we might get a lot deeper than is comfortable for us or is easy for us. And then other postures, we might not be able to get as deep as we like. And so again, this is kind of the trade-off for combining the hips and the spine. Now next week, we won't be doing that. We'll be doing something else, and that's very conscious and intentional on my part. I think a sequence like this is very beneficial, and I think it's good for us to get out of our comfort zone. But we don't want to stay out of our comfort zone all the time. We don't want to push the envelope all the time. Then very often we end up burning out and we don't continue with our practices. So we want to moderate that, like all things. Okay, we're going to unwind and we'll come back onto our back. And let's relax. Feel the rebound. Okay, we'll pull those legs in, give them a little shake out. And then unwinding onto your back. Find a comfortable position where your body feels supported and you feel relaxed. Set a timer for 6 minutes and just try to allow your body to rest in stillness for the next 6 minutes.